Hi, I'm Philip Tan.
And I'm Sarah Varelli at the MIT Game Lab.
This is where we work, this is where we play, and this is where we make games. And we're going to be talking a little bit about what's a game, what is play. So what's a game to you, sir?
Well, a game is for me it's an organized form of play. It's one where I have a set of rules that I know and I'm following them to achieve a particular goal, winning the game, or in my case more often losing the game. And I usually play it with several other people, particularly when I'm working at board games and card games.
So if there's a version of play that's really structured that you find in games, then there's probably a version of play that's not structured, right? What's that like?
That might be more like when you're playing at a playground, when you just watch kids running around, and they'll be running around in circles 1 minute and climbing on the swings the next, and going over the structure the next. That's all play, but it's not structured, and if there are any rules, I have no idea what they are, and I don't think anybody else playing on the playground does either.
Yeah, I have a 3-year-old, and she's creating new rules, but it's pretty much whatever comes to her mind at that point of time of what she wants to do, and I think there's something powerful about that state of mind, right? It's like there's a certain freedom that makes you not have to worry about what's happening outside that playground, or beyond that ball that you've got in your hand. It seems to me that play is, in one way, doesn't really serve any kind of purpose. It's like there's no real world benefit out of play, other than maybe a little bit of exercise.
Except that play can also have a lot of learning in it. When you're watching your kids sit there playing with a bunch of Legos, there's no rules, and often there's no real goal, but you watch them sit and build from a pile of little broken up blocks. Suddenly you've got a house and a city and a story and 3 people walking down the street and deciding to go stop by the garden, and that's a lot of learning right there. It's not just learning how to build things and how things go together, it's also learning how to tell stories and how to interact with each other. That's powerful.
Oh yes, there's the social element of play, just like trying to use a playful group of people to figure out how you get along, and how you issue challenges, and how you rise to those challenges, and also just how you reinforce relationships, I guess. Certainly my toddler learned how gravity works through play, and I guess it's a good way to learn how various things in the world also work. If you're tinkering with, say, a broken watch or something like that, and you're having a lot of fun, even though you may not be aiming to ever use that watch, but you're just trying to figure out how it works, you're kind of in a playful state of mind, right?
And suddenly you're learning how all those springs and things work together. So it sounds like play is really conducive to learning.
So, but let's get back to games a little bit, because let's talk about that structure that you're describing. Because there's learning in games as well. There's at least learning on how to play a game. But then, when you sit down to play a game, like a board game or a card game, you'd think that you've learned everything right from the beginning, right? You read through the rules, you know everything about a game.
I think somebody who thinks that has never played Go. I can give you the rules for Go in about a minute or two. You put down a black stone or you put down a white stone, and you try to surround your opponent's stone. But there are people who have spent a lifetime mastering Go.
So there's something about a game that emerges out of all of the rules that you see written down on a piece of paper or maybe off the website.
That's more complex than that set of rules looks like. All of a sudden, when they start interacting, you've got this system that creates more complex interactions than you can just explain by looking at a piece of paper.
So if we have rules on one end, which are the things that you write down and you explain to people, and then you have a system on the other hand, which is all the complexity of everything that could happen in a game, do we have something to describe a concept in between?
That sounds like a mechanic, which is the way actions get expressed in a game. The actions taken by players, and in some games, the actions taken by the game themselves.
So when a player uses a bunch of rules to change something in a game, that's a mechanic?
Yeah.
Let's get some examples of that. What are some games, maybe well-known games, that have well-known mechanics?
Well, lots of people have played the game Go Fish. In Go Fish, each player, it's played with a deck of regular playing cards. Each player has a hand of 5 or 6 cards, and you look at your cards and you're looking for pairs, but you're trying to get pairs out of your opponent's hand. And so you ask them, you look at your hand and you see an 8, and you say, do you have an 8? And if they do, they say yes, they give it to you, or else they say go fish. So there's a mechanic for you to get cards out of your player's hands, out of the other player's hands, and put pairs down.
And then how about things that happen right at the beginning of the game? Say when you play Go Fish, there's this whole like shuffling and dealing things out. You know, that's also kind of a way of establishing how a game is about to start. But there's this process, a set of rules again to be able to get the game.
So that's framing the game. That's the setup for the game. And I suppose that those are sort of the mechanics of how you get the game started. So there'd be mechanics for how you get the game started as well as how you play the game.
So now, mechanics aren't just about the things that you can do, right? Sometimes they describe things that you can't do. Like, you know, say, let's take golf. The goals of those games, of that game is really, really clear. The goal of golf is to get this ball into this hole that's some distance away from you. But if that's all you were trying to do, then it would be much easier for you to just pick up the ball, carry it over the hole, drop it in, and you'd be done. Very easy.
That would make golf tournaments very fast. Yeah, but that's not the way the game is played. So the mechanics clearly include what you can't do as well as what you can do.
When you can pick up the ball, which is usually when it falls into the water, and how you make the ball move, you know, with a stick, probably incredibly complex means of being able to get any object to another place is to hit it with a stick.
Certainly, if I were trying to put a ball in a hole in anything other than a game, I would pick up the ball and put it in the hole.
And now there's a difference for a game like golf and a game like pool, where ostensibly, if I were just to describe it verbally, they're not that different. You hit a ball with a stick
and it goes in a hole.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the way you use the stick and the type of stick you use are all very different. And again, that's defined in the rules of the game, which ends up giving you a different set of mechanics for both games and a very different feel for the way both games are played.
So in other words, rules can define, say, the kind of stick, whether you're using a cue or a golf club, but then mechanics describe what you do with that, because that's something that the player is going to do and then be able to try to achieve victory or fail to achieve victory. Okay?
Okay.